Welcome to HMS, let the power flow. Feel the rhythm in your veins. Every rapid nitro flame.
Okay, outfit change. Optimizing arousal. What is arousal? Okay. Arousal is a physiological and psychological state of being awoken or stimulated, okay? So it is a direct connection between the mind and the body, and basically the mind has a physiological effect on the body when you are aroused or lacking arousal. So common features of like high arousal and low arousal, just so you can understand. High arousal, we've got, it's high energy, fast reaction time. There's more to focus on because there's more stuff going on. Shallow breathing, high heart rate, sweating. So pretty much when I'm doing these videos, I'm in high arousal, okay? Because there's lots going on here that I want to get out in under 20 minutes, which doesn't happen. Low arousal, on the other hand, is sort of, for want of a better term, the opposite, okay? Most of the time the athletes will be calm. There's low energy required. They're able to take deeper breaths, okay? They're almost relaxed without being, underperforming relaxed level. Less to focus on, so maybe they've just got to do one or two things, okay? So I'm going to rub this off and then I'm going to give you some examples as to sports in which require high arousal and sports which require low arousal and therefore optimum arousal. I always think of that when I was a kid, there was an ad on TV. I wish I could find it. There's this guy on TV and he was like, I'm excited. And he was like this big guy and he's like sales, it might have been like Harvey Norman or something. Anyway, that's like high arousal. That's what I think about. I'm excited.
G'day Australia, I'm Big Kev. There's nothing more Aussie than a barbecue with your family and friends. And there's nothing more Aussie than Big Kev's cleaning products. Proudly Australian made and owned, my products really work. Look for them in the cleaning aisle at your local supermarket. Come on Australia, let's keep the profits in our own backyard. Buy Australian owned and made and join the fight to buy back our country. I'm excited.
Okay, so we just went off screen. Athletes perform best at their optimum arousal for their given sport, okay? So being over-aroused is going to lead to mistakes because you're too energetic and therefore reduce performance. So for example, breaking off the blocks before the gun, okay? So whether you're a swimmer or a runner or whatever, you start before the gun, it's probably because you were over-aroused, you were overstimulated, you were over-ready to go and you made a mistake. And now your 4 years of training have gone down the drain. Maybe you're playing league or something and you've gone to pass the ball, but you're so aroused that you've thrown it too hard and it's completely missed the player, okay? Or you've thrown it too far and they've had to jump to get the ball and therefore you've missed the opportunity to implement your strategy and tactics and therefore not score. Or maybe you're so aroused that someone's passed a ball to you and instead of watching it and catching it, you're already focused on other things and you drop it because you weren't paying attention as to what's going on. Similarly, but on the other side of the spectrum, being under-aroused leads to lethargy and therefore reduced performance, okay? So for example, maybe instead of you breaking early off the blocks, maybe you start late now off the blocks, okay? Maybe you are a league player who is going to receive this ball and you're not running fast enough to actually catch the cutout ball and therefore you don't score, you get tackled and therefore the whole strategy goes, up the creek. Or maybe you're a tennis player getting ready to return a serve, but because you're under-aroused for the situation, you react slowly and miss it, and therefore you lose the point, all right? So in general, and I'll show you this on the next screen, beginners will need lower arousal to reduce their mistakes than elite athletes, because elite athletes have a lot of muscle memory, so they've gone through those stages of skill acquisition, so they're able to work at higher levels of arousal in a given sport as opposed to what a beginner should be in that same sport, okay? And we have a really nifty way of showing you this, which is what you're about to learn. Ta-da! The inverted U hypothesis. It's been around forever and it's still a mainstay, which is good because it means I don't have to learn anything new to teach you guys. So the inverted U hypothesis basically says that each sport and activity and ability or skill has an optimum level of arousal. Okay, so if we look at this chart, the peak is going to be the optimum level of arousal and therefore an athlete's best performance. For each given athlete or skill, if you are under-aroused, your performance will suffer. If you are over-aroused, your performance will suffer. And this is the optimum level. So if we look at this is the amount of arousal that you have. So let's look at something on the low end. To optimize performance, a dart thrower needs low levels of arousal, okay? Something similar to a dart thrower would be like a golfer, okay? It is a self-paced skill. They've got no competitors to look at, okay? It's just them and their object and they perform their skill. Low levels of arousal. If you can think of a golfer who is over-aroused, they're just going to swing and miss, okay, or lift their head like I do every single time. Terrible at golf. If the dart thrower or the golfer is under-aroused, then they're probably not going to be focused enough on where they want their ball to go and they're going to make mistakes. They might hook, slice, or they might throw their dart and it's going to go in completely wrong direction on the board. So low levels of arousal, okay? Then I didn't need to draw this many inverted U's, but why not? Then the next level up would be like a shooter, okay? So imagine like a skeet shooter, you know, the puck, is that what it's called? Oh, who knows? You know, the clay thing that flies in the air and you go in the Olympics, right? So they need more arousal than a dart thrower because now they've got a moving target, but they don't want to be over-aroused either because then they're just going to be like, pow, 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 and miss it. Yes, that's my best gun sound effects. Then up from there, we've got maybe we're starting to get into some team sport type athletes, but maybe team sport athletes that don't have a lot going on for most of the game, or maybe they're in a quieter position, such as a netball shooter or a goalkeeper. So obviously more arousal than a dart thrower, a golfer, a shooter, etc., but not as much arousal as like a forward in league, for example, who would need lots of arousal. Up from here, we've got like a weightlifter. So remember, a weightlifter is going to be exerting all of their power. So they need really high levels of arousal, but it's still just them and the skill. Okay, they don't have competitors to look at or anything to deal with strategically and tactically. So I have rated them at lower than like a league forward. So a league forward, they're in the middle of the field. They've got lots going on around them. They need to pay attention to the ball. They need to pay attention to the opponent, but also that they do a physical sport. They need to actually make physical contact with another player to stop them advancing, okay, which indicates super high levels of arousal. So you can think of contact sports are going to be all the way up here, and then all the way down here, these are going to be like our non-contact self-paced skills. And then everything else is going to fall in between. And the optimum level of arousal for each of these skills shows that they have the best performance possible. Okay, some final definitions for this video. We've got to look at stress and anxiety, okay? So anxiety is one of two things, and athletes will experience both types of anxiety together, okay? So it's not that you have one or the other, you have both. There is trait anxiety and state anxiety. Trait anxiety is the genetic predisposition to be anxious. Everyone has a level of trait anxiety. Some people are just really chill and they have low levels of trait anxiety, okay? Some people, like myself, really high levels of trait anxiety and they're always sort of running it like on the level of being anxious or not, okay? Anxiety is important because anxiety increases arousal, okay? So if you're already at a high level of trait anxiety and then you add on to that high levels of state anxiety, that can easily make someone over-aroused and therefore reduce their performance. State anxiety is therefore the anxiety response to a current condition or a demand, okay? So for example, if you're a rugby league player and you go to a training session on Tuesday, you've got your trait anxiety, which, might be this level, and then you're at training, which is really low because there's not much going on, you're just training. So then you add those two things together and that's your anxiety level. Whereas that same player goes to the grand final, their trait anxiety remains the same because that's their genetic position, but now if it's a grand final, it's really important, so their state anxiety is highly elevated, and then that goes together, and then you've got an overall level of anxiety. So anxiety needs to be managed to put people at the optimum level of arousal, and therefore optimum level of performance according to the inverted U hypothesis, which is why the whole focus of the first part of this video was about ways in which we can reduce stress and anxiety. Okay, so you can see how it all ties together now. So sources of stress and anxiety, so you've got internal and external sources. Internal being like fear of failure, pressure to perform, just having that thought as to what do people think of me, okay? That's sort of like internal anxiety. External anxiety is coming from external pressures such as the crowd, opponents, coaches, okay? Threat of being dropped, all that kind of stuff. And then finally, we have these two definitions of stress. We have a state called eustress, okay? And a state called distress. Eustress is positive stress, aka excitement, okay? This is good. A little bit of eustress is a good thing because it motivates action, all right? So if you are sort of keen to do something, but you're a little bit stressed about it because you know you've got to get it done, like an assignment, then you may be in a state of eustress because it motivates you to do something and therefore it's positive. However, if the stress gets too high, because of the combination of anxiety things, or maybe you just left something too late, or you're underprepared, or not well equipped to deal with a situation, then you can find yourself in a state of distress, which is negative. And that negative stress is going to have a threat response on the body, and you fight, flight, freeze. I think there's another one. Who cares about the other one? The main one we're looking at here is flight, okay? If you are in distress, it can cause you to shut down and flight. So it's to try to get away from the problem, actually not deal with the problem itself, okay? So I'll rub this off, we'll write one more thing up and we're done. It is therefore imperative that athletes use psychological strategies to manage their anxiety levels, attain optimum levels of arousal, and hence achieve peak performance. And that's the end of the video. Thanks.